I think to some extent it's a false dichotomy. So people say like, oh, it's either prediction or it's understanding. And it's true that big data is coming at questions more from like the predictive nature or just like an exploratory way of thinking. So we can just look at data and see like what are the patterns that we find. But then nobody prevents you from following up with a lab study, for example, to kind of really understand like what are the mechanisms behind it. So I think oftentimes big data is like falsely accused of not kind of lending itself to the questions of like what are mechanisms, how does it contribute to theory. I think it's just a question of combining different methodologies. So kind of taking the benefits, taking everything that's good about big data, and then combining it with our traditional experimental methods that give us a little bit more room for experimenting on like mechanisms, trying to see why do we see the patterns that we see. The problem that where this is coming from is that most of the time prediction has been done in the context of computer science, and what they care about is mostly accuracy. So they don't really care about like why can we predict personality from Facebook likes, what are the specific things that are driving accuracy, but nobody stops you from them taking the next step. So even if we're working with models that are difficult to interpret, so let's say we're using a neural net where people say like this is just a black box, we don't really understand what's happening inside the model, nobody stops you from looking at the output. So if we, for example, take the predicting personality from faces, like what's happening in the model might be really difficult to understand, but you can still look at the output. So you can still look at, okay, like what do the faces, the 10 most extroverted faces look like? And then you can start spotting like differences in people's like physical appearance. So I think it's really the fact that like for now, most researchers stop at the point where they can accurately predict something without looking at the outcome and then seeing, okay, seems what's driving the effect.